Good morning, Wabash. Speaking today at Pioneer Chapel will be Captain Houston Mills with his talk titled, "No One Breaks the Sound Barrier Alone, a Roadmap to Success and Significance." Captain Mills, as president of the Flight Operations and Safety at UPS, oversees global responsibilities for airline operations, including crew management, scheduling, training, logistics, cargo sales, and safety compliance. A graduate of Wabash College with a bachelor's degree in English literature and an MBA from Webster University, Houston served as Global Aviation Strategy and Public Policy Director before his current role. Houston, with a background as a Marine Corps officer and FA-18 fighter pilot since 1985, served in Operations Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Restore Hope, and Southern Watch, with over 100 aircraft carrier landings. In 2022, he became chairman of the FAA Advanced Aviation Advisory Committee, focused on advanced air mobility and uncrewed aerial systems integration. He holds leadership roles in various aviation organizations and is a certified international captain on the Boeing 757 and the Boeing 767. As a family man and father of three, he actively engages in motivational speaking, golf, and coaching youth sports. Notably, he piloted the first COVID-19 delivery flight in the U.S. in December of 2020. Let's give a warm welcome to Captain Mills.
What up, Wabash? Whoa. All right, so I need you guys to help me out real quick, all right? So this is a little warm-up, see how everybody's doing. All right, so you just follow me. I say get it, you say got it, get it. Get it. I say got it, you say get it. Got it? Got it? Get it, get it, got it? Oh, God. I don't know, President Feller. All right, let's try this one. I say get it, you say got it, get it. Get it? I say got it, you say get it, got it? Got it? Get it, got it? Get it, got it? Get it, got it, get it? Ah! All right, I need you guys to help me out one more thing. I need everybody to stand up, though. Everybody stand up real quick. All right, so this is participation. All right, and I'll say two words and you fill in the blank, all right? Wabash always? Wabash always? Wabash always? Hoorah! All right, let's go. You're good. You know, I always say it's good to be home. You know, whenever you come back on campus, there's a feeling of nostalgia, a place of belonging. It's a homecoming. And even though I graduated a long time ago, I'm what you call one of those old guys, it seems like yesterday that I was sitting exactly where you were, listening to some old guy talk about something. I'm not sure if I remember it, but I'm hopeful that today I will share with you a couple thoughts that might resonate. I don't have a prepared speech, but I've had a life worth of experience that's been very unique. And I just want to share with you some of those things I've learned along the way in hopes that maybe you'll take a nugget here or there that might be beneficial for you along your journey. Because the world is crazy right now. There's a lot of stuff going on. Some will describe it in the terms of VUCA. I'm not sure if you ever heard of VUCA, but VUCA is a world full of volatility, full of uncertainty, full of complexity, and full of ambiguity. And so if you think about the world and everything that's going on, you can look at it and say, man, I've got to fight that fight. It's going to be tough, but not for Wabash, man. We got this. You were made for this fight. You are being given a foundation where the spirit of hope and civility and driving this country forward, these are the men that will make it happen. And I can tell you because it seems like yesterday I was right where you were trying to figure out what was next. And so I've learned along the way that it takes a lot of people, it takes a village for any type of success. And although I'll tell you, I remember the first time I broke the speed barrier, 760 miles an hour, about 12 miles per minute. And I was over the Owens Valley in Southern California, learning how to fly F-18s. I had an instructor in the back, and I was anticipating it, right? We had done all the kind of low-level flying, and I had already landed on aircraft carriers. I had done all this really cool stuff, in-flight refueling, tankering, doing all kind of stuff. And then, but the speed barrier was something I hadn't done. So I'm in the Owens Valley in Southern California, and I'm back there, got the power up. There's 400, there's 500, Mach 0.8, Mach 0.9, Mach 9.5. The instructor says, plug in the afterburner. 1.0, 1.2, 1.3. And I got all the way up to 1.6 that day. Now, I was expecting some big kind of boom. I wasn't sure. I'm like, all right, here we go. I'm bracing. I'm like holding tight. I'm a little nervous, waiting for that boom. I didn't hear anything. Everything's behind me. Now, I can tell you, if you were outside, boy, it was noisy that day. Because we were zooming. But as I think back to that moment, that moment really was reflection of a lot of people along my journey up to that point who had made an impact on me, who helped give me the foundation to get to that point. And I'll never forget when I first got down to Pensacola, Florida, which is where all naval aviators learn to fly. Marines, the Navy, the Coast Guard do their initial training there. And I remember when I arrived, I looked up in the sky, just literally 6 months removed from Wabash. Didn't know the difference between a rudder and an aileron when I got down to flight school. Knew absolutely nothing about aviation. But I had my Wabash foundation. And I remember looking up in the sky and seeing these two A4s fly by, and they were zooming. I go, oh my gosh, those guys must be gods. 6 months later, I was leading a flight, flying a jet, thinking there's somebody on the ground. Looking up, saying, oh my gosh, those guys must be gods, knowing that no, just an ordinary person, with an incredible group of people and an incredible desire to be the best that they could possibly be. This journey can be a special journey. And I like to say, I'll give you guys 5 Ps, and I'm going to be all over the place, so bear with me, because I got 30 minutes. I could talk to you guys for the entire day. I've had a life full of experience, quite frankly, I don't think I deserve. But I'm grateful, that the good Lord, saw me fit to be on this journey. But as I think about things, if I were to say a playbook for success and for significance, I call them the 5 Ps. It starts with people. It goes on with passion. It goes with practice, perseverance, and purpose. And when I think about people, I think about my family. And oh, by the way, I got my lovely wife, Sonia, here. Sonia, let's give her a big round of applause. Oh. You got to have family, because I can tell you, I'm not a fighter pilot. I'm not president of one of the largest airlines in the world today. I don't have 3 amazing children, all of whom are on payroll, thank God. I don't have any of that without a great wingman. And she's the lead. I just kind of fly along. But you got to have people in your life that you can count on. You got to have mentors. I think I saw Coach Johnson, Coach Petty. Hoorah, let's give those a big shout. Hoorah. So it might not look like back in the day I used to be fast. I was short, but I was fast and had some speed, so I had the honor of, being part of the basketball program here. And Coach Johnson, like he probably does a lot of you guys, I'm not sure how I got recruited to run some track, but I ended up doing track for a semester. I think that's how Coach Johnson rose, but I think about Horace Turner, I think about Tom Campbell, I think about Bill Plackert, I think about many others who imprinted on me as part of my journey here at Wabash. I think about great friends like my brother, Greg Costell and Greg Castaneus and many others, my Dean Jones. And I could just go on with so many people during my journey here that are lifelong friends that have been part of my journey. Greg, right there, as Sonia and I walked down the aisle. And oh, by the way, I met my wife on a road trip, right? That's what we do, up at Purdue, right? Yeah, not it. Just saying. Through some friends, people, who had a girlfriend up there and says, hey, we're going to do a road trip. You want to go? Yeah. That's how we ended up. 37 years of marriage since. Blessed. Yeah, blessed. And I think about Wabash, and let me kind of come back here to Wabash and this foundation. And, I was kind of looking, and bear with me because I love this, because I think when I look back on, our mission to educate men to think critically, act responsibly, lead effectively, and live humanely. Our country is so divided. I'll be honest with you. I can't think of another period in time in my lifetime where I've seen us so divided. And I got to tell you, I served our country for 9 years active, 2 years inactive. I absolutely love our country. I've put my life on the line for our country. We need Wabash men who can think differently, think independently, but live civilly, right? And work towards common solutions that ultimately will advance all of humanity. That's the unique thing about Wabash. So we said, Wabash always fights. That's us collectively. When I said homecoming, it's a powerful thing. It renews my sense of purpose. And so being back here, knowing the foundation that Wabash gave for me is phenomenal. When I was here and the lessons I learned through athletics, my brothers, Lambda Chi Alpha, welcome, hoorah. I had all kind of families. I had my basketball family, I had my track family, I had my fraternity family, I had my brothers at MXI. I was just connected. I had my Sphinx Club brothers, right? That's how we roll. So when I come back to campus, I'm connected. This is a special place. A special place. And so Wabash, gave me this sense of, purpose and family and so many other things that I learned here along the journey that were foundational. But more importantly, I remember like it was yesterday, I was working out, coach, because I didn't like to run distance, and this Marine recruiter was on campus, and he saw me, and I was in decent shape, and he said, hey, what are you thinking about doing next? I said, well, sir, I, English literature major, political science minor, I plan on going to law school. He says, that is great. How you plan on paying for it? Now, mind you, I'm first-generation college grad. My dad never made more than $35,000 in life. My mom was stay-at-home mom. Didn't have a lot of money, but boy, did we have a house full of love. Phenomenal. That's all we needed. But he said, I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. He says, well, let me tell you about this judge advocate program. If you go through OCS, 6 weeks, we'll put you up, free room and board, we'll give you some money, and we'll get you in shape. And I remember Coach Petty, we'd be running, I'd be like, don't get me wrong, but black guys ain't used to running distance. At least this one not. So I used to always be in the back of the line. When I came back from PLC, I was in the front of the line. Those guys weren't met. But when I went through that program, it connected me to a higher purpose again. And those values that were espoused in the Marine Corps were very similar to the values that are espoused here at Wabash, were very similar to the values that me and my family held dear. So as I grew, going into the Marine Corps, it became an easy stepping stone to go from here. Now, I went from an English literature major, political science minor, knowing absolutely nothing about aviation, to getting down to flight school. Think critically. What does that mean? Learning agility, unraveling complex problems, challenging, building confidence, learning quickly. All those things it takes to pretty much know that with confidence, no matter what you're majoring in now, whatever's put in front of you, you will succeed. And so when I got down to flight school, it was easy. And oh, by the way, when I got there, I talked about mentors here at Wabash. I got down there to Pensacola, and right before flight school, I'm playing basketball in the gym. And there's this guy who's trying to guard me. And coach, I still have my speed. He couldn't catch me, so he kept fouling me. And I told my buddy, I said, guy, if this guy fouls me one more time, it's going to get ugly in here. He says, do you know who that is? I said, I don't care who he is. If he fouls me one more time, it's going to get ugly. He says, that's Donnie Cochran. Donnie Cochran, yeah, he's the first African-American Blue Angel. All of a sudden, he had a halo over his head. I'm like, foul me, Donnie. Rub some of that juice off here, just at the beginning. And so afterwards, we got done playing. I said, hey, Captain Cochran, I'm Houston Mills. I'm about to start flight school. Here's my buddy, Jamie Shelton. Any words of wisdom for us? I hadn't even started. And he took us across the street. There was McDonald's, got a Coke, and we just sat down and started to talk. And he just told us about his journey and what to expect and how to prepare a mentor, willingly sharing his knowledge, not knowing me from Joe Blow, to give me something to grasp on. He gave me a nugget, and I'll give it to you. He gave me a book by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. It's called The Power of Positive Thinking. It's a powerful book. Now, for me, I went and got that book, and I went and I read it about 4 in the morning. And I'm not sure, I was a B student here at Wabash. I was pretty decent. I started to lock in once my junior year, things started to pop up a little bit. But when I got locked in, I read that book, and I tapped into a different type of focus and training. And when I went through flight school, I was number 1 in my class. A guy who knew nothing about aviation. A guy who had a foundation of learning, thinking critically, working with others, building relationships, taking advantage of mentorships. And you know what I found is when you're open to receiving, people love to give. When they know you have this thirst and this desire for more, they freely will share. So when I went through flight school early on, I would be down in front of the simulators before they started, and I would ask the instructor, says, hey, if you mind, it wasn't part of the curriculum, you mind if I just sit and observe? So yeah, and I would go and observe others go through. And so by the time I went through my own training, I had already done it. And I would just learn and learn and learn, and I would do more than anyone expected. And what I found was people would come out of the way to do more and share more and help build me up. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal journey. So one of the things I learned when I was down there was this incredible need to really persevere. When you're flying jets really fast, there's a lot of good days, and there's a lot of other days where things just don't work out the way you think they should. So I had to really learn to fail fast. You guys heard that term, failing fast, what that means? And so what I learned from that is, one, and even to this day, I've got to own my mistakes. I can't make excuses. It is what it is, but I got to learn from it. I got to fail fast, and more importantly, I can't allow past failures to snowball into things that block me from what I envision to be the future. Because that's what happens. And I can tell you, I talk to so many people who have these old issues, like a chain with 500 pounds just weighing them down. They can't go forward because they're still stuck in something that didn't go perfectly in the past. And I got to tell you, when I was flying, some days I come back, I felt like I was God. I'm landing on an aircraft carrier in the middle of the Indian Ocean. I'm like the baddest man on earth. And then I come in, I almost kill myself. Whoa, sheesh, go by. Ups and lows. And what I found is, try not to get too high. Definitely don't get too low. Be grateful, have humility, but don't mistake humility for confidence. And that's where that practice comes in. How do you get good? I was talking to a couple seniors who just got through comps. Who's got through comps? Raise your hand. All right, hey, congratulations. I remember comps like it was yesterday as well. That's like a big old backpack, right? Get that thing off your back and you are ready to go. But, if you think about, the preparation, right? The practice, everything that you've done, those comps really was just a reflection of all the work that you put in. It's the same thing when you leave these halls. It's practice, practice, practice. When I landed on an aircraft carrier for the first time, I only had 250 hours. But before I went out in the Gulf of Mexico, I probably had 200 practice carrier landings on dry land with someone watching, making sure I was ready. When I got qualified to become a captain on 757, 756, even though I was a war veteran and had all these hours in F-18, the first thing they did, I went to school, start all over. Every year I go back. In fact, 3 weeks from now, I'm going back to my own recurring training where I'll be in a simulator practicing emergencies, preparedness over and over. Yesterday, I had the privilege as flight operations president. I've got a $5.2 billion budget for what I oversee for flight operations. And I had to review that in a business meeting yesterday with my boss. And 3 days over the weekend, all I did was go through the numbers, every project, everything else. So when I had my 15 minutes of conversation, I had full confidence that I absolutely knew my stuff. And guess what? When you know your stuff, what does that give? Credibility, confidence. It builds trust. It's not about the position. It's not about the stripes. It's about the confidence and the trust that you get from others. Preparation and practice gets you there. I'm thankful for the practice from Coach Petty and Coach Johnson and those routines, the suicides, all those things that got you ready for the game. But it's the routines of putting in the extra work in order to get there. So you got to practice. And I would also say, from the other thing that I really learned from the military is the practice is good. It gives you that confidence. It prepares you for whatever you're going to face, but nothing's easy. There's a lot of sacrifice that many of you are going to have to make in order to accomplish your dreams. For me, I got this great foundation of aviation after springboarding from Wabash to the Marine Corps and got to fly all over the world. But 5 of those 9 years, I was gone. I missed the birth of my second daughter. I was over during the first Gulf War, the Operation Desert Shield on the ground, not knowing if I would make it back. I was again over in the Persian Gulf when my wife was pregnant with our son, our youngest, and I got back a week before he was born as I was serving flying missions over southern Iraq. And I think about that, my oldest daughter, I missed 3.5 years of her first 5 years of life. But in return, I got this incredible foundation. Without any of that sacrifice, none of that would be here. So I've got this term I want you guys to remember. Progress demands sacrifice. I call it PDS. Write it down. Remember it. It's true. If you're willing to give something up, the payback will be immense. Now, sometimes for some, it might come easy, but at some point, you're going to be asked to pay the price. Are you willing to do it? When I came to UPS and I started on this leadership journey, UPS came and said, hey, we want you to take your family, I had kids in school and everything else, we want you to go here. I'm thankful for my life partner who's always been, let's go. But it's a sacrifice. Pull the kids out of school, new friends, new communities, everything else. But part of my leadership journey and growing, that sacrifice led to the opportunity to demonstrate capability, instill more confidence in others, and it led to increased responsibilities and more opportunities. Now, I never go into anything with the hope that that'll happen. My ultimate goal is to make things better than I found them. My ultimate goal isn't for another stripe. I've never sought to be president of flight operations. I sought to make an impact. We as Wabash men have this foundation of being more than whatever that profession we're going to be. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge, and how will you make an impact? I can tell you that if you were to go to UPS and the folks that I work with, they won't talk about Houston Mills, the president. They'll talk about Houston Mills, the person who cares. They'll talk about Houston Mills, the person who is service-oriented, trying to figure out what can I do to help someone else be successful. They'll talk about Houston Mills who collaborates well with others, because by coming here and being in this rich, diverse environment, I feel comfortable anywhere. I'm grateful for Wabash. I can be comfortable in the lowest income area in the world. I can swing with the senators, which I have in the United States. I can flow with CEOs. I'm comfortable in any environment, black, white, Jewish, Chinese, you name it, I'm good. Why is that? Because I know who I am. I've been in an environment where my brothers accepted me for who I was. And I accept others for who they are, even if they think differently than me. Unless they're trying to kill me, then that's a whole different thing. By song, nothing personal, hey, it's you and me, baby, let's roll. I don't like your odds, but, if that's how it got to be. But I say that because, some people today get very uncomfortable when you say DEI or anything else. We need Wabash men who understand the importance of including folks so that we as society get better. Because I say we're so much better than our differences. But who's going to lead us? Who's got the courage to not just sit down and listen and let the crowd have the voice? It's men like Wabash. As I said, I can go anywhere in the world and with confidence feel good, because I've learned so much from the people that I've had the privilege of serving with. When I was in the Marine Corps, another mentor of mine, Jim Mattis, you guys heard of Mad Dog? Yeah, former Secretary of Defense. Well, it just so happened that during the first Gulf War, I was on a one-year ground assignment where I was a forward air controller. And 3 months into that ground assignment, I had gone from flying F-18s to the ground. 3 months into that ground assignment, Saddam Hussein took 100,000 troops into Kuwait. And next thing I know, they're amassed on the Saudi Arabian border. And Lieutenant Colonel Jim Mattis, who was my battalion commander, said, Dallas, that was my call sign, by the way, looks like we're going to Saudi Arabia. 3 days later, I was on a 747 landing in Al Dhafra Air Force Base in Kuwait, first Marines on ground. Eventually, the tip of the spear was Task Force Ripper. They crossed the minefields. It was phenomenal. People say, well, weren't you disappointed that you weren't flying during the first war? I said, oh, no. Every opportunity that I've ever had, every job I've ever had has been the best job, no matter what it is. Some have been phenomenal jobs. Some would say, ugh, man, that must have been tough. I've approached life that anything you give me is the absolute best. And so when I was in that job, it was phenomenal. General Mattis, by the way, is considered to be one of the most well-read military leaders in our history. I had the privilege of serving under him for a year and seeing excellent leadership up close every day. And so part of who I am is because of who he is. And I saw it, and I live it, and I incorporate it into my leadership style today. And so these mentors, these men, these friends who come and help you become a significant part of your journey are so important. So I will say to you guys, as you think about who's in your circle, who are those mentors? When I came to UPS, I was on a 727. I was a DC-8 engineer, and I came to UPS. Oh, by the way, I got there because of a friend, a relationship of someone I met in flight school who I kept in touch with while I was an F-18 guy on a carrier. We just stayed in touch. Relationships matter. Networking matter. We stayed in touch. I sent him a letter off the aircraft carrier. I'm thinking about getting out. He said, hey, if you get out, I know the HR director at UPS. Send me your resume, and I'll walk it in. People. And he did. Walked it in. I get back a month later. I go in for an interview. I get hired on the spot. Next thing I know, I'm there at UPS. And oh, by the way, remember that story I told you about Donnie Cochran? Years later, I get recruited into management. And my first management job is in charge of our human resources, hiring pilots. Whose resume comes across my desk? Donnie Cochran. None of this stuff happens by accident, guys. You got to put in the work. You got to build those relationships. You got to learn. You got to fail fast. You got to do all these things. And it's amazing how it comes full circle. So I'm at UPS, and I got into management very fortuitously. I'm a DC-8 engineer, but I always knew I was more than just a pilot. Wabash taught me more than just flying airplanes. Flying airplanes did well. I mean, I travel all over the world. They pay me good. I get to meet people. I'm all over the world. You fly, you're off. It's like you're done. And I would be as bored as crazy if that was all I did. So I'm flying back home, and I'm sitting next to this older guy, and I'm in a uniform. Right. And he says, "Hey, that's a pretty interesting uniform, young man. Are you a pilot?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Well, I just joined UPS." And he says, "Oh, UPS, I didn't know they had an airline." I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Well, how do you like it?" I said, I'm loving it. I says, "In a lot of ways, it's like the Marine Corps, because the Marine Corps is a big ground company, Marines, right, who just happen to have an Air Force." And I always knew that my job as a Marine fighter pilot wasn't to glam and say, "Hey, I'm a fighter pilot." My job was to support that young 18 or 19-year-old Marine with the M16 on the ground. That was my job. And so when I interviewed, this is why UPS, I said, "Well, UPS is a big ground company that just happens to have an airline. My job will be to support that service providers that's delivering that package to the customer." So it's an easy fit. So I'm telling this story to this older guy, and he's asking me about the family, and come to find out he was a Marine. And if you're in the Marine Corps, it's like a fraternity forever as well. And so we started talking about the Marine Corps and everything else, and we had these commonalities, and I'm telling him about my young family. He said, "Oh, man, isn't that great?" And he says, and finally, after me telling him all about me for about 45 minutes, I said, "Well, sir, what do you do?" He says, "Well, I'm a senior vice president of international officer, UPS." Come on, Luca, you hear me? And you talk about the opportunity to put your foot in your mouth. But Marty Hance, who's now deceased, instantly became a mentor and a friend and became one of my biggest champions. Today, as part of my service, I want you guys to know service is so important. As part of my service, I serve as president of the Marine Corps Coordinating Council of Kentucky, which basically works with all Marines in the Kentucky and Indiana area to connect with Marines who are leaving, they need help, et cetera, et cetera. It was Marty who connected me to that organization years ago, who brought me into the UPS or the Marine Corps family locally, who connected me to UPS, who made sure that I knew the right people, who made sure that I didn't get bottlenecked, so I got opportunities to have impact. Mentor, people. But at the end of it, what do we have to do? We have to deliver with excellence, every time. So when I think about, UPS in particular, there's one moment that really sticks out. And I want to ask you guys to have some questions, so I don't want to sit up here and talk, but I do want to share a story. So people ask me all the time, what was it like when you had the privilege of being the captain of the first vaccine flight? And I do a lot of public speaking, and so when they knew there might be a couple of reporters, they said, "Hey, Houston, we're going to give you some talking points. There might be a couple of reporters. After you get done, they might ask you a couple questions since you're going to be captain of this first vaccine flight." I'm like, "Okay, no big deal." They give me some talking points. So we fly, and the first thing I'll tell you is when we left Lansing, Michigan, they had the U.S. Marshals escorting the vaccines to the airplane. And as they clean the airplanes up, I give the mechanics and the ground folks the permission to pull the chocks and the stairs, get the aircraft ready. I look up, and they have a center where we sort the packages, and now that center, about 200 people come out, and they're right at the edge of the ramp. They all just start clapping. And they weren't clapping for me. They were clapping because that moment was an opportunity for us to take the fight to this incredible disease. And it was a culmination of a lot of good people taking on a very complex problem. Many of you have lived through it, right? Especially the seniors. The impact it's had on everyone's lives. And so there was a powerful moment. I'll never forget the power of that. And so when I got back and I landed, and our president of healthcare was there, the vaccine flights come out, and the reporters they got the cameras, and they're all on the vaccine, and our VP of health is going with them, and there's no reporters. I'm like, oh, I got out of that. And so I'm getting up myself and ready to go, and then one of our media folks, hey, Houston, they want to see you on the other side. And, okay. So I jump in a van with the Regional Airport Authority of Louisville. We cross the runways, and I get there, and they've got like 12 mics set up, and this podium and everything else, and I'm looking around going, okay, well, which reporter am I going to talk to? And they said, oh, no, they're going to report. You need to go up there and start talking. So I'm fresh up there. Next thing I know, this is live TV. You know, CNN, Fox, you name it, MSNBC, and an opportunity to share a story that started long ago. I believe all of us are built for moments. You never know when that moment's going to come, or you have a voice to share and have impact. Wabash was part of my moment. The Marine Corps was part of that moment. UPS was part of that moment. And in that moment, you know what I realized? It wasn't about me at all. It's always about others. It's telling the story. It's about hope. It's about how do we get better? How do we take the fight? How do we elevate? It's not about despair. It's not about getting down. It's not about saying, this is me. That's what the material world would want you to do. I subscribe to you that true success and purpose comes from doing for others. What will your legacy be? What will they say about you? When you walk away from a job, will they say, man, I'm going to miss so-and-so, Tom, Mike, Luca? Yeah, they'll say that for Luca. What will they say about you? Here's the other question. Why should it matter to you? Because you're more than just someone showing up. I'm a person of faith, and I really believe that God made each of us unique and special for whatever purpose that is for you. Elevate it. Think big. One of my favorite books by a guy named David Schwartz is called The Magic of Thinking Big. And yesterday, Greg and I, the Gregs and I and our spouses were at a restaurant with a 2016 graduate of Wabash, Levi Hartz. Kitty. Thank you. So Levi is a chef. And he was telling 30-year-old chef, dreaming big dreams. Phenomenal. I was so inspired. What's ahead of you? That first job will be good, but don't think about that first job. Think about something big. And what I found in my journey was the bigger the dream, the bigger the outcome. Why not you? What impact will you have? When Secretary Chow sent me an invitation to join the FAA Drone Advisory Committee back in 2016, I was one of 35 executives to be invited to advise the FAA administrator on what the future integration policy should look like for drones and uncrewed aircraft. When Secretary Buttigieg reappointed me 6 years later, I was asked to chair the Advanced Aviation Advisory Committee, which I serve in this today. Now, I don't know anything about unmanned aircraft, but I do know this. I know how to work with a lot of different people. I know how to bring the best out in others. I know how to listen critically to folks with diverse ideas and opinion. I know how to work with people and bring people together who are different from me. And oh, by the way, by the time we're done, we're at a higher level. This experience was a foundation for me to learn and grow that. But you have to keep that going on over and over and over. People, it's family, it's friends, it's mentors, it's relationships, it's the community, it's folks you don't know making an impact. And oh, by the way, when you're done, it's not about how many stripes you get. It's about the impact that you make. I could be a supervisor tomorrow and be totally fulfilled because I know the impact that I can make with what the good Lord's given me here and in my heart is going to happen regardless of what my title is. The title gives me the opportunity to influence more people. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful that the organization has the trust that I'll do the right thing as I have this temporary privilege of being in this position. I know President Feller, being president of Wabash College, one of the best liberal art schools in the world, certainly understands the privilege that it is to be entrusted with such an immense responsibility. But the question isn't what your title is. The question is, what do you do with it? What impact are you going to make? So I got a few minutes here. How much time we got? Okay. Thanks, sir. I do want to kind of digress. I want to open this up, and because you don't get it every day to have the opportunity to kind of just come and talk. And so I want to just open up for a few questions, see if you guys have anything I can share, and then I'll just kind of tie things up. Any questions that you guys had I might be able to speak to? Any thoughts about the future, getting out of here, or anything that I can share with you guys along those lines? None? All right, we got one. All right. So the question was, how does my faith play a way in my life? And I would say this, that I found that I can't do this journey alone. There's just so much complexity and there's just so much that goes on. It's very easy to become overwhelmed. I probably get 300 emails a day. There's always something. So I have to meditate, I have to focus, I have to stay connected to a source for me that helps me eliminate the noise and tap into more power when I need it. And then to humble myself when things don't go quite as well as I would like them, and help me recover. And so I'm grateful that I can find that peace and not lose my confidence and bounce back quickly. I don't think I could do any of that on my own. Yeah, that's a great question. What else? Yes, sir. Yeah, that's a great question. So one of my favorite books, I've got a lot of favorite books. I'll give you guys a couple. So one book that I really enjoy on my leadership journey has been 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And so that's one. The other one is by his son, Stephen M.R. Covey, which is The Speed of Trust. And what I found in leadership that, you have to build a culture of folks that will follow your inspirational leadership, but if it's not based on trust, you'll be looking behind you, the politics will overcome you, and it just becomes noisy. So I've always tried to build my team based on trust. There's another really good book by a guy named Ken Blanchard. It's called Gun Ho. This is my leadership playbook. I learned this in the Marine Corps. And Gun Ho, Ken talks about you need to have 3 things to have a gun-ho organization. He uses 3 metaphors. They're pretty cool. He says you have to have the spirit of the squirrel, the way of the beaver, and the gift of the goose. Yeah, right? The spirit of the squirrel, the way of the beaver, and the gift of the goose. Now, Spirit of Squirrel says, hey, if you go outside, and of course this beautiful campus we have, you look at squirrels, what do? Anybody? Help me. Yeah, they run around and gathering nuts. Why are they gathering nuts? Yeah, because if they don't, they're going to perish. So what Ken says is squirrels are doing meaningful work. And so when we think about purpose, we think about passion, we think about doing things that make us tick, getting connected to things that we're passionate about, meaningful work, meaningful things that will lead you to having a purposeful, impact and a purposeful existence. And he says the way of the beaver is simply this: beavers are nature's engineers. If you were to watch after a storm, the beavers, after a dam broke up, what you would see are the beavers going and repairing the dam. What you wouldn't know is who was in charge, because the beavers just go about doing the work, not caring who gets the credit. If you have an organization where folks trust that you have their backs and they have yours, the way to beaver. And then last, he talks about the gift of the goose. Now, if you guys ever watch geese when they're flying, the science says that geese flying together can fly about 80% further as a flock than any individual goose can fly alone. It's because of drag and everything else. And geese are really loud. If you guys play golf, you see geese come around, honk, honk. And what Ken says, the geese are honking because they're honking encouragement to the other geese. Honk, honk to the leader. You're doing a great job. Honk, honk, keep going. Honk, honk. They're noisy, but they're encouraging. And then when the lead goose gets tired, does the flock land? No, someone else steps up. And do the geese get quiet? No, they're honk, honk, you're doing a great job, keep going. So Ken says in an organization where you equally recognize, people are recognizing whether it's top down or side to side, you have people who are encouraging one another. People know you have their back and you recognize them for a job well done. Spirit of the squirrel, way to beaver, gift of the goose, gun-ho. I can tell you Wabash is a gun-ho organization. I've learned in my time in the Marine Corps, a gun-ho organization. My time with UPS, a gun-ho organization. So part of my leadership journey has been, what can I do to help the team be successful, to build a culture where everybody wins? All right, guys, I know you got a lot to do. It's lunchtime. Thank you so much for this opportunity to spend some time with you.